There we go.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Stow Select Board meeting for November 14th, 2023. Our first order of business will be public comment for anything not on tonight's agenda. If you have a comment, please identify yourself, name and address before speaking, and you have 2 minutes to make your case. We have no one here in the room with us. We don't see any hands raised, so that's that. Moving along, board member comments. Hector,
Just to acknowledge, November is Native American Heritage Month.
excellent. I have a notice from the wreaths for our veterans group. With the holidays around the corner, they would like to invite everyone to join them for the 4th annual laying of wreaths for our vets on Saturday, December 16th at 11 a.m. in the Brookside Cemetery. As in past years, their goal is to have a wreath for each of the 400 veterans laid to rest in Stow. They can only do this with your help. Please help by donating non-decorated wreaths, which can be dropped off on the bench outside at 453 Great Road on or before Thursday, December 14th. Or a wreath can be ordered from Stow's Scout Troop 1 website, which is troop1stow.net. They would like to invite everyone to join them at Brookside Cemetery and help lay the wreaths. Evening.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to acknowledge the Veterans Breakfast for the weekend. And I really want to thank everybody involved setting it up, from the folks who the most moving part was the Quilts of Valor, and to see the vets receive those really was something special. So I just wanted to really acknowledge that and thank everyone for taking the time and being willing to do that.
Yeah, I agree. It was a well-attended event. And it was sweet. The Quilts of Valor was really nice.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It was humbling too.
Town administrators report.
Yes. I do want to remind you all to speak up a little bit so the camera can pick you up. That was a little soft. That last that last go around was a little quiet. Yes, thank you. We now have a clothing and textile recycling bin located at Pompo for textiles in any condition, provided they are clean, dry, and bagged. The bin has been there for a few weeks now, and it has been completely full. They come every Monday to empty it, and we're actually talked this morning about possibly getting a second bin or a larger bin because it is being very actively used, which is great. We were informed that the school project will receive an increased amount from MSBA per square foot due to inflation. At this time, however, the new amount is not known, but MSBA did take a vote to increase the amount. So we're waiting to find out what the final amount is. They did 2 votes, one for projects that were coming up in the pipeline and one for the projects that had been approved over the last year and a half. And so they did vote on both of those cases to increase the square footage allowance. So once I find out that updated figure, I'll be sure to pass that along. The Gleasondale Bridge is expected to be completed on Friday. They're paving this week. There will still be some minor work around the bridge for a canoe launch, but otherwise it should be done. I would like to recognize the police department, specifically the chief and Phoenix Dwyer, for their work to obtain a federal grant supporting agencies seeking accreditation. They received $139,278 to use towards equipment for the accreditation, such as evidence and gun lockers, cameras, policy management software, personnel costs associated with being part of the accreditation team, and a specialized accreditation conference for all members of the team. So great work from them. I too would like to recognize the Rotary Club and the Fire Department for their work on the Veterans Breakfast. It was a great event. We did a last minute push in the last 2 weeks leading up to it to get more attendees. And I think we had maybe 35 veterans, if I had to guess, along with their family members, town officials, state officials. And the Quilts of Valor was a very nice presentation. It was very overwhelming, and you could see that those who received them were overwhelmed and those watching were overwhelmed as well. It was really a beautiful service. Pictures can be found on our Facebook page for anyone interested. As you all know, Dolores is leaving us. Her last day is next Wednesday to move on to another community. It will certainly be a huge loss for us here, and hopefully we'll have a decent candidate come in to replace her. The job is posted. We'll start going through resumes right after the Thanksgiving holiday. Speaking of Thanksgiving, the town building and municipal buildings will be closed on Thursday and Friday for the holiday. And I hope everyone has a happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
About the Dolores's replacement hiring, is the select board involved in that process at all?
Just my recommendation will come to you,
Okay.
which is actually not in the charter, but I've added it to come to this board since in theory, that position would replace me if I was absent.
We have one appointment tonight. Who's here? You wanna say anything? This is for a laborer position in the highway department. We have Denise's recommendation. Hello, John. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to say anything about joining the highway department?
I wasn't expecting to speak. Can you hear me?
Okay. Can hear you fine.
Well, thanks for considering me for the role.
You're welcome. Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I move to appoint John DeVries.
It's DeVries.
DeVries, okay, thank you, John. Madam Chair, I move to appoint John DeVries to the position of laborer for the Stow Highway Department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
All right, welcome.
Welcome, John.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Very excited. You too. Have a good night.
Thank you. See,
Shall we do minutes?
you can do minutes. Does, on the October 24th minutes, do we have any comments or changes? We love our excellent minutes from Joyce. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I take motion.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the October 24th, 2023 meeting as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
And-
that's unanimous.
And Madam Chair, I move to accept the meeting minutes of the October 30th, 2023 open session meeting as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
would
Yeah.
abstain because I wasn't present.
Oh, at the second one. Great hands.
Alrighty. Probably start on the
Like to discuss-
authorization of the health
Madam Chair.
insurance change.
Because it's an employee issue, I need to recuse myself.
Okay. Thank you. You have anything to say about it?
I do. So I did include in your packet some information. We are currently with the Minuteman Nashoba Health Group. We are looking to change to MIIA, the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency. As you can see from the information we've presented, although it's kind of confusing, but Minuteman Nashoba last year for fiscal 24 gave us an increase of 13.75%. It was the highest increase we've had in a while. Dolores regularly attends their steering committee meetings, and over the last few months, it's been made clear that they are, as a health trust, have been suffering to collect enough money to cover their costs. So the expectation is that they were going to have another large increase this upcoming year because they're trying to make up for years of underfunding their plans. At the meeting, so we had started this process, thankfully, a couple months ago. We brought on our health insurance consultant who got a bunch of comparable rates from MIIA and the Group Insurance Commission, looked at our plan designs, looked at different information to try and figure out what our plans offered versus what plans we could potentially offer. In the meantime, we've learned that out of the 13 communities with Minuteman Nashoba, 9 of them are looking to leave. As a result, Minuteman could not sustain a group trust. They don't have enough membership. All the larger communities are leaving. And it has come out that they are facing roughly a $5 million deficit.
Yikes.
So we've met with the unions. We had a great conversation. We provided information to them. The plan that we're recommending through MIIA is the same plan design that we currently have, the same deductibles, the same co-payments. Really, the only difference is MIIA is solely a Blue Cross plan, whereas the plans that we're currently offering have some Harvard, Tufts, Fallon. So it would be changing providers, but the coverage would be the same. When we met with the unions, they were actually pleased that we were looking into it. Obviously, healthcare is one of our largest expenses. It is for them as well. So they were very receptive to the change. It does not need to be negotiated, but we took the opportunity to sit down with them and talk about it. We already have the increase for MIIA for fiscal 25, and the rates that they have presented us for fiscal 25 are almost identical to the rates employees are paying today. So changing next fiscal year, employees will see little to no increase. I mean, a couple of plans go up a little, a couple of plans go down a little. And then in the second year, we are guaranteed an average of all the increases across the board. So you can see what the historical rate changes are for MIIA. So what that third column is in the paperwork, the average is what we would see in year 2. They've guaranteed us into a 2-year rate. And then on the third year, they would rate us on our own experience. I do expect that over the next 2 years, we will work with the unions to look at the Group Insurance Commission through the state. Their rates are historically lower than what we could get through any community, but there are plan design changes, which is why in this first year, we didn't want to go and make the big jump. Figured, let's change to MIIA, let's get us in a new plan, and then we'll do some more work and see if the unions have an appetite to actually change benefit design, increase the co-payments, change the deductibles, etc. So tonight, I'm asking for you to authorize that change. All employees have been notified. A few folks had comments. Really, the comment was through Minuteman Nashoba. Folks are entitled to the Canadian RX program. The other plans don't offer that. So some folks that get their prescription drugs through Canada would not be able to through that CanRx, but we are looking at alternatives. That is the only concern. And unfortunately, with Minuteman going away, we have no choice anyways.
Okay.
So we have to switch. The vote is Thursday, and we fully expect them to dissolve as a trust effective June 30th. And then we will be left with figuring out how they plan to apportion their $5 million deficit. It's expected that they will apportion it across the 13 entities based on enrollment and participation. So you should expect an article at next year's town meeting to cover the deficit cost.
Okay, thank you. So if one or maybe 2 questions, so just curiosity mostly, but if, since you don't have, there won't be a Tufts or Harvard Pilgrim, you said, or something component, will those, is there a PPO option so somebody could opt for that and perhaps get some of their regular, whoever they see, not have to
Yes, yes. So the MIIA plans offer an HMO, a PPO, a straight indemnity plan. So all the same types of plans that we're currently offering will be offered. Back in the day, it used to be based on the insurance you had was the providers that covered it. It's not like that anymore. If a provider accepts Harvard, they accept Blue Cross, they accept Tufts. And Harvard and Tufts, as it was, were merging anyways. So those two companies are going away. They're forming one company. But yeah, coverage is not like it used to. And actually back then it used to be Blue Cross was the preferred plan provider. And then Harvard and Tufts sort of made a push here.
Yeah.
But yeah, all those plans. So we did so on one of the sheets that I gave you, it sort of has, it's a lot of numbers, but it's top and bottom. We sort of estimated where folks would go based on the plans that they're in today. And so everybody had a seamless transition into a new plan. And obviously they're welcome to choose if they want to move up to a better plan, if they want to move down, depending on what their preference is, they'll have that opportunity.
All right, thank you. Are we ready for a?
I think Hector has a
One
question.
quick question.
Oh,
MIIA,
sure.
is that the same one that had the draft for the policy that we use
Yeah.
for?
So MIIA is a subsidiary of MMA. That's who provides our property and casualty insurance right now. So we will get a slight discount on property and casualty because we're adding the health insurance as well. So we'll have all of our insurance through them. And yes, they are an MMA subsidiary.
Okay.
Motion.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize a change to the employee health plan from the Minuteman Nashoba Health Group, MNHG, to the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency, MIIA, effective for fiscal year 2025.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous with the three of us. Right,
Perfect timing.
Do you want me to get JT?
Yes, I can hear him talking.
Lenny, would you mind just sticking your head out and telling JT he can come in? That would be awesome. Thank you. Rather than me.
with me bellowing.
Another one would work.
Uh,
And Kristen is on Zoom and I'm going to share her presentation for her.
So I'll read the
Yes,
notice. Notice of tax classification hearing. The select board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 at 7:15 PM in the town building, 380 Great Road, Stow, Mass, on the issue of tax classification. The purpose of the hearing is to allow taxpayers the opportunity to present their views on whether or not residential, commercial, industrial, open space, and personal property tax should be taxed with one rate for all property classes, or to use different tax rates for different property classes. The hearing will include a presentation by the Board of Assessors outlining the options available under Chapter 40, Section 56 of the Massachusetts General Laws. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Select Board shall determine whether or not tax classification shall be applied for the fiscal year 2024 tax rate. Currently, town taxes at a single tax rate for all property classes. All concerned taxpayers are encouraged to attend, either in person or via Zoom, to present their views orally or submit them in writing to the office. We need a motion to enter the hearings.
Madam Chair, I move to enter into a public hearing on the fiscal year 2024 tax classification.
Second.
All this in favor, Ms. Birch McMichael,
Aye.
Mr. Constantos,
Aye.
Mr. Tool.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. The public hearing is open.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, are we ready to get started?
yes,
Yes.
please.
Okay, all right. So just a couple of things before I get going. I just want to remind everybody that any and all tax rates that we do discuss tonight are still subject to Department of Revenue approval. It's not an automatic thing. And I just want to ask that we hold all questions until I get through all the slides. So with that, we will get started. So first slide. Okay, so we're here to decide whether or not to maintain a single rate or to adopt a split rate. We have to sign the Form LA5, which lets the Department of Revenue know which option we've chosen. And then there are three other options that the select board can grant: the small commercial exemption, the open space discount, or the residential exemption. I normally don't do slides on these because they're not really relevant to Stow, but at one of the previous select board meetings in October, when we discussed the residential exemption, I just had some concerns that the board might not have been even aware that this option is offered every year at the hearing along with the other two. So like I said, I've done some brief slides on these. So we'll get going on the first one, which is the small commercial exemption. The board can grant a small commercial exemption of up to 10% of the property value for commercial properties. In order to get the exemption, businesses cannot have more than 10 employees as certified by the Department of Employment and Training. The building value cannot exceed $1 million. Granting this exemption increases the commercial and industrial tax rates. It essentially sets three different tax rates. You would have your residential tax rate, you would have your commercial and industrial tax rate, and then you would have a separate personal property tax rate, because granting this exemption does not shift the burden to the personal property businesses. It only shifts it to the commercial and industrial. And keep in mind that only the commercial can get the discount, not the industrial properties. So again, shifts the burden to the higher assessed commercial and industrial properties. If one business in a building doesn't qualify, then the building doesn't get the exemption. So if you have a strip mall and one business has 11 employees, the discount isn't granted. And again, the exemption goes to the building owner, not the tenant. So every year we get this list. Stow has a total of 60 commercial and industrial parcels. There are less than 5 that would probably qualify for this exemption based on their list. So again, you're going to shift the burden to, the other properties, which isn't ideal for them. Going on to the next one, open space discount. Open space is defined as land which is not otherwise classified and not taxable under Chapter 61A or 61B, or taxable under a permanent conservation restriction, and is not held for the production of income, but maintained in an open and natural condition which contributes significantly to the benefit or the enjoyment of the public. A maximum exemption of 25% may be adopted. However, the town has never voted a discount for open space. The reason why the town has never voted a discount for open space is because open space parcels are classified under the 200 state use code, and we do not have any properties that are classified under that code. So we can't give a discount to properties that don't exist. And again, if we did, it would significantly raise the residential tax rate for all those properties. And then moving on to the last option, which is the residential exemption, which we discussed at a previous meeting in October, but I will go over it again for those who weren't at that meeting. Granting a residential exemption shifts the tax burden to non-domiciled taxpayers. It's adopted in 18 communities, including Boston, Nantucket, and Barnstable. It's intended for seasonal communities. So think communities like the Cape, where a lot of people don't live there year round, and also high apartment complexes. Think Boston, Cambridge, where again, a lot of people don't live there year round. They have investment properties. It increases the residential tax rate, and using last year's data set, it would have raised the fiscal 23 tax rate from 1813 to 2226. The tax burden for owner-occupied properties below the break-even point of 621,750 would be decreased. And again, most homes in Stow are owner-occupied. The DOR has our statistics at 95% owner-occupied. I'd say it's probably more like 98%. There are 8 seasonal homes in Stow. We have 6 apartment buildings, and 3 of those are affordable apartment complexes. So again, adoption of a residential exemption significantly raises the tax rate for everyone that's residential, but only giving a benefit to those properties below the break-even point. And I think we've already established that a means-tested exemption would make more sense than a residential exemption. So those are the 3 options that are available, and I just wanted to give you more background on those. So moving on. Every year, the assessors have to classify all property into one of the 4 classes. They are residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property. If you hear me refer to the CIP classes, I am referring to commercial, industrial, and personal property collectively. Next slide. So if we choose a minimum residential factor of 1, that would yield a single tax rate. The formula for determining the tax rate is taking the tax levy, or the amount of money that the taxpayers have chosen to spend, divided by the taxable value of the town times 1,000 equals the single tax rate. Under the Chapter 200 and the Acts of 1988, Stow can select a factor of less than 1, which would shift the tax burden to the CIP classes. Historically, Stow has always chosen a minimum residential factor of 1. So the next slide brings us into the residential factor options. The blue line at the top is a single tax rate. If we adopt a factor of 1, we would have a tax rate of $16.97 for all classes. I want to point out that's the lowest tax rate we would have had since fiscal 10, so that's pretty significant. So we can shift up to 150% of the burden to the CIP classes, and as you can see in the pink columns, with each incremental shift, the residential tax rate drops about 10%, but on the CIP side, it goes up about $1.70 with each incremental shift. And then going to the next slide. So the average single family value for fiscal 24 is $736,500. Again, the blue line is a residential factor of 1, showing that the average tax bill would be $12,498. And again, with each incremental shift, you're looking at a savings of about $70. And if we shifted to the maximum 150, it would be a savings of about $400 a year on the average tax bill. The next slide shows the commercial side. So the average commercial value is $871,500. Again, the blue line, residential factor of 1, single tax rate. The average commercial bill would be $14,789. And again, with each incremental shift, you're looking at about an increase of $1,500 with each increment. And then if we shifted to the maximum amount, it would be about $7,400 a year more for the average commercial property. So the next slide, again, we had a minimum residential factor of 1. Estimated tax rate would be $16.97 per thousand. And again, this rate can change during the Department of Revenue approval process. The next slide is a percentage of values by property class. So this is a comparison of fiscal 23 to 24. The totals at the bottom are the total taxable value of the town. At the top, you can see last year we were 93.66% residential. We are now 94.36% residential, and the CIP has shrunk from 6.34% to 5.64%. So if we're trying to bring more businesses into town, these numbers are going the wrong way. So that's just that's a new slide this year. I just wanted to give you a picture of how large the residential percentage is compared to the CIP. And then moving on to the next slide, we have a look at the average tax bill compared from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24. The average single family value increased about 15%. The tax rate would decrease $1.16. The average tax bill would still increase about $880 a year. And then we had a small increase in the levy or the spending, which was about $2 million. So not terrible. I mean, like I said, it's still going to increase, but not as much as I think we were anticipating. The next slide. This is a single family value distribution. So there are 2,122 single family homes in Stow. This gives you a look of how many of those homes fall into each range of value. I really want to point out the last row, the million plus. So we have 213 homes, or 10% of our housing now is valued at $1 million plus. The last year that number was 59, or 2.8%. So that has increased significantly based on market sales. The next slide. This is new growth. New growth goes into our levy limit calculation, or the maximum amount that we can spend every year. So fiscal 24, new growth came in at 257,415. The blue lines show revaluation years when we have to do a complete recertification. I pointed out fiscal 19 and 20 were pretty large growth years, but that was when Regency was going in, that was being built. So as you can see, when we don't have any large construction projects going on, growth is typical, somewhere in the mid 2s, low 3s. So this year's growth is you know, I'd say average when, without any construction projects going on. The next slide, this is a picture of 21 and 22 calendar sales, calendar year, not fiscal year. Fiscal 24 values were derived from 2022 calendar year sales. And as you can see, sales activity dropped 33%. Days on the market decreased 25%, and the average sale price increased about 20%. This is just supply and demand. When there is less inventory, it sells faster and it sells for more. And then the last slide is our surrounding municipalities. So the municipalities in the pink or the purple have single rates. The properties down below in the orange color have split rates. I did add Lancaster to this list this year. This list was given to me when I first started working for Stow. And I was told that these are the properties or these are the towns that I should use to compare to Stow. I just want to let the select board know if there's a town that you'd like to see that's not on this list, or if there's a town on here that you think is no longer relevant, please let Denise know and I can, you know, edit my presentation for next year. I did add Lancaster because they are in the district and we do share expenses with them, but I want to point out that the only towns that are lower than us have a much larger CIP class than we do. Lancaster has double what we have, and Northborough is obviously a lot larger than what we have for CIP. So, and I also want to point out, I know we had talked about the means tested exemption. If you look at Harvard on that list, their residential tax rate is 1 penny higher than their CIP tax rate because that is how they fund their means tested senior exemption. So raising it just a penny for everybody pays for that exemption. So that's how Stow would do it if we decided to bring that on. And at this point, I will open it up for any questions. If anyone has any questions about the statistics in this presentation.
Not seeing any, Kristen.
Okay. Well, I hope I've given you enough information to make a decision.
Let's see, oh, Charlie
Yeah.
Hartford has his hand
I
raised.
gotta get there. Hang on 1 second, though. I have to stop the share.
You have the slides.
They're in the. It's like a separate.
Okay,
There you go.
Charlie's available.
Hi,
Okay,
Charlie.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, given that commercial industrial zone land in this town makes up a very small percentage of the tax base, and we are struggling to attract and retain business in town. And as Kristen pointed out, a rate change for personal property tax would have a pretty small impact on our personal tax rates, but it would certainly raise taxes on businesses. It strikes me as very counterintuitive to consider anything other than continuing the same tax rate for both personal property and for businesses and industrial in town.
Thank you. Could you just state your full name and address for our note takers?
Sure. Charlie Hartford, 95 Taylor Road.
Thank you. Yeah, I tend to concur.
Sorry, Kristen, could you say a little bit more about that 1 penny increase in Harvard? Cause I'm curious,
Yeah.
or no?
So, I mean, she can, I would defer to the chair, but I don't want to go down that road too much tonight, because that's going to be a larger discussion that we'll talk about leading up to town meeting, and if there's going to be an article
Oh,
on
perfect.
means tested
Okay, then great.
exemption.
Yep, absolutely. I hear that. So no, Kristen, do not say anything. Thank you.
No problem. No problem.
Look forward to your explanation later.
That later.
Yes, the assessor's office has been collecting data.
Okay.
I've talked to Kristen, so we wanted to get through the tax
Yep.
specification hearing,
Yep.
and then we'll start talking about that.
Okay.
Any further, Tom?
Yeah, Tom Ryan, 453 Great Road. We've been going the wrong way on commercial industrial for years. I remember, 20 years ago, we were probably around 85% instead of where we are now, almost 95% residential. And, you know, we had great conversations then, how we were gonna try to get more business into town. And it hasn't happened. But surely if we raised the taxes just on businesses and tried to switch it, we would probably drive what little we have remaining out. So I agree fully with Charlie.
Got it. Thank you. Any other comments from the room?
Just again, also with the assessors, letting go over, I agree with the, what Tom said and with the analysis that, I have lived here for over 30 years. The discussion comes up perennially, and it's the same problem. We don't have enough business to separate into two classifications.
Got it. Thank you.
Steve Quirk, 18 Center Place. I agree with all the rest. We need to help business as much as we can in this town. And I had my own business at one time. So, and I see the blight. And, you know, it's horrible. When I moved here, they were all full, all the stores. But we need to help business. So.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? No,
You'd like a motion to close the public hearing?
I would. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that the public hearing on the fiscal year 2024 tax classification be closed.
Second.
All those in favor? Roll call, Ms. Birch McMichael.
Aye.
Mr. Constantos.
Aye.
Mr. Tool.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, that's unanimous. Public hearing is closed. I would take a motion on, is there any further discussion on tax classifications? Let's go to a motion.
Would you like me to make the first motion based on the general consensus it seems around the table?
I would say you make a motion and they either vote it up or down.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks. Madam Chair, based on information from the Board of Assessors, I move that the town of Stow adopt a minimum residential factor of 1 to keep a single tax rate for fiscal year 2024, taxing all property classes at one rate.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that is unanimous. Here we have it.
Great.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.
That was
Thank you.
a great presentation. Thank you for the extra information for us and those listening at home. Now we're gonna spend our evening discussing policies.
You guys have fun.
We're gonna have lots of fun. I'm gonna break out the milk and cookies when you leave. It's not true. Sorry for any of you that thought we were gonna have milk and cookies. Great, let's start with the recording meetings policy.
So if I may, it was not the easiest to draft a policy with boards and committees that you could not mandate. So I did the best I could and made it a recommendation. So do with it as you wish, but it was not the easiest to sort of put together the thoughts that you had had at a previous meeting on paper.
So I appreciate your efforts and I thank you, you know, I think I understand the difficulty. I just usually let everybody else go first. I just want to say something first about this. I have this feeling that I would like to have more transparency in our process always to be make things accessible. I just want to ask the question, if we feel we need to make this information have widespread access, easy access. I wonder if there's a way that we can make this available in the town of Stow on our website. It would still be searchable, I'm sure. I'm open to suggestions on how we might make it feel like it's a little more private to the town rather than YouTube. not against YouTube. For those who might be less excited about volunteering for these boards and committees when they're gonna be recorded. So I'll just throw that out there. It's part of the discussion.
I appreciate that. However, I think part of being an elected official and being on a board is important to have that full transparency. And I think that if we are going to I think that if people are going to continue to have virtual meetings, then people need to be able to see them. And I think that if it's, unfortunately, we're in a sticky situation where it's like, you can't really have both. Like, we have to be recorded because we meet in person, we do this. Some boards have chosen to fully be remote, and that's their choice. But then it makes it a lot harder for people to see it. And so I think that it felt to me like you struck a very good balance, because we can't tell other elected boards and committees what to do, but we can say, in the interest of full transparency, we would recommend that this is what you do. And I think that that's what we can do as a select board, because we could be like, well, we either believe in full transparency and we try and put something forward to do it, or we don't. And I can also hear that some people just do not want to be on television, or they do not want to be on the internet. And I understand that, but for accessibility's sake, I think it's important, and for transparency's sake, I think it's important for people to be able to go back and see what was said and whatever on meetings. I'm assuming that there would be a very large fiscal cost for us to have our own database that was not tied to YouTube on the Town of Stow server.
Well, yes, I mean, to accommodate the amount of data. I did chat with Jonathan a little bit because Courtney did bring this up. I do believe there's a way to make it private on YouTube, but still make it accessible, so that it's not found. If someone went, like, we could put a link on our website and it could take you to that page, but if you just Googled, Stow public meetings, it wouldn't be the first thing that comes up. So we could certainly explore that a little bit more. But yes, to have our own database with all the meetings uploaded, would be, I mean,
It would be.
we would have to determine, it's funny, in the department head meeting today, someone asked if we would have a sunset clause that, after so many days, months, years, the meetings would come off. I said, well, that's not the intention. The intention would be that you want to go back and look at meetings that happened 5 years
Right.
previously, you'd have that opportunity. So I think in order to be fully transparent and have meetings available, it would be a large amount of space that we would need.
Other comments? Hector?
So I'll scratch the whole storing locally, because that sounded like a much better answer than I had. As far as the transparency, yeah, I also agree that we're elected officials, or I understand that we have a hard time getting volunteers, and I understand that some of the difficulty in getting volunteers is they don't want to be in the public. However, that seems to be like a conflict, that you're either going to be in the public or you're not. If you're serving in town government, in any government, there's always the call for transparency, and this is another way to get transparency going. It's nice if we can restrict it to just Stow residents, but I also don't know if Massachusetts state would require access to it, right?
No, so we couldn't restrict it to Stow residents. If someone went to our website and clicked a link, they would have access to it. It just would prevent it from being fully searchable.
Right.
So someone would have
Yeah,
to
'cause
take
you
an
can-
extra step to get there.
You can make your channel unsearchable.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. My questions though are, so would this also apply to any subcommittees or boards that we create temporarily?
So again, it's fully at your discretion. Item 2 says all of the boards are encouraged to record their meetings. Just in the topic of conversation, we had talked about the financial boards, the land use boards. I added all elected boards because most of the financial and land use boards are not through your appointing authority. But it could be as much as little. I know there was talk about putting something in a bylaw. This is sort of the first step to that.
Because I was thinking, if, I know that on rare occasion, this board has created a temporary group to work on something. Should this policy also cover that group?
My opinion is if it's a group that's governed by open meeting law, then we're talking about transparency, which is open meeting law.
So I'm thinking that we should add that in this policy to clearly specify in any, I don't have no idea how to word it, but any groups that temporary groups and stuff.
I think it's covered in 2, though. All other boards and committees are encouraged to record their meetings.
It's a committee, even.
Well,
if
that
it is-
addresses the ones that the select board doesn't appoint or.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It's
It's
so
all
we're
Okay.
saying,
committee.
It's
we're
all
saying
other boards and
electric, financial and land use, and then everybody else. So it's kind of,
2 is kind of the catch-all for everybody else in
Right,
town,
'cause I
like
think-
any other, like,
I think when we originally talked, it was, yes, it would be nice, but it might not be necessary for, ancient documents to record their
Right.
meetings. This leaves a little bit of discretion if there's a meeting, a committee, the Veterans Grave that meets once a year. They may not need to record their meetings. It left a little bit of discretion. I would say that we could certainly work into motions going forward, that if there's a committee the board is creating, you could make that as part of a motion. That if it's something you want to have in sort of the to be recorded column, especially if it's one you're appointing, that could be discussed at the time of the creation of the committee. And you could make the determination if it would be encouraged or if it would be required. But I'm happy to add ad hoc committees on here.
That's all I was thinking is adding the word ad hoc or something like that to. So that anything that we create, even if it's temporary, some investigative committee or something like that.
As long as it doesn't fall under executive privilege.
Exactly. And I was also thinking about I know we're still trying to get the EDIC going, but should that be listed here? Even though we don't currently have much of an EDIC.
again, it's.
I think it falls under
falls under
2.
two.
Okay.
Yeah, I think sorry.
So, but one of the reasons to do, for instance, one of the reasons for land use is because there's a whole process around development,
Mhm.
which is of interest for a variety of reasons. There may be residents that can't attend a meeting, or that, or select board members who'd like to know, watch the planning board, or, just, or people who have a conflict, can't watch the meeting, and want to watch a recording and have it accessible. So, and I think finance is sort of obvious. And others are just an extension of the transparency
Right.
thought process that we have, or require, sort of request that we're making. I just wanna, GT, do you have stuff to say, because everybody else is talking over here without you're having a chance, yeah,
I'm just listening to what everybody
Wait,
and.
biding your time, okay.
I'm just waiting, yeah. I have some thoughts, yes.
Good.
The fact that it was difficult to even come up with this as a policy or recommendation, again, stresses the point that, I personally feel that we should just be moving into the bylaw range for a number of different reasons. elected committees don't have to follow this. We're under a bylaw, they do. And if we're really, as Megan said, if we're really committed to transparency in our government, why are we playing around with a policy like this? I'll give you a scenario. Elected boards, at first, okay, they follow this until our town meeting takes place, and then after that, they just decide, okay, we're not gonna do it. Now you've got a whole year of a meeting taking place that does not have the transparency that we're trying to accomplish in our government. And this is the crux of the issue as far as I am concerned. I feel that we as a board have a responsibility to direct our government in whatever fashion we can to make it as transparent as my learned colleague Megan has stated, and to make it as accessible as possible. So I appreciate it and I understand it's the first step. I'm just not sure we're gonna not be seen back here at this meeting time in our meetings in the not too distant future, just moving into the bylaw.
I think of it as training wheels.
I
I
would.
mean, I fully wrote this expecting a bylaw, but I figured why wait 6 months, roll it out now and see if boards start to come along. I still, even if every single board complied, I would say you should still move forward with the bylaw to formalize it. But instead of just waiting until May to see if a bylaw passes, why not put a recommendation out and see who follows it? I mean, I think it's sort of a training period to see if people are, you know, if we had this discussion in the summer lining up for a special town meeting, it'd be a different story. But why not put a recommendation out and see if boards, you know, start to comply now instead of waiting until May? But I fully expect to have a draft bylaw for you with the same information, only making it a requirement. I think that's why I wrote it the way I did, because when the conversation happened, the sort of requirement was gonna be sort of the finance and the land use boards, and everyone else was gonna be nice to have, but not necessary. So if you want to change that list, we can certainly do that. But that's why it's the way it is. Because we felt that not every board was required to, because ancient documents, I mean, I don't know that anyone's gonna go and watch one of their meetings. Certainly, if that's what the board wants, we can put all that in there as a requirement, but that's why we were sort of separating the have to and nice to have sort of columns. But I do fully expect to have a bylaw on this.
It might be nice to consider also some part of this. I mean, I know you facilitate a lot in terms of technology and availability of hybrid meetings and so forth, but there might, I don't know how the board feels about this, but possibly in this initial rollout, we have some, I mean, the other reason to do it this way is to create a buffer period where, you know, groups that aren't used to having public attendance or being visible, just have a chance to get used to that.
Yeah, and I put together a sort of Zoom tutorial on how to record a meeting, because we talked about that too. So I do have like a 2-page screenshot on which buttons to hit to actually record, so that can go with it.
I would also like to point out, we are always very excited when we get our minutes from Joyce. And part of the reason that she's able to do such good minutes is because she has access to our video recording. And so I think it's not even, if these get recorded and like put up, that would be ideal. But I think it's going to help whoever the minute taker is to be able to actually give a clear, concise, honest accounting of what happened in a meeting, as opposed to whatever the person happens to be able to scribble down in that moment. So I just feel like that's important too.
Yeah, I mean, we do record. I mean, I think a bunch of groups record now in order to, and then delete those.
Right.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Yes.
Hector?
thinking more of the logistics of it, we just have this room and the one above that has the ability to do these recordings, right?
No, I mean, so we have a number of owl cameras around, different buildings have them. The first floor, you just plug it into a laptop and you can have a regular Zoom meeting.
Okay. Cause I was wondering if, we're telling if these two rooms are taken up, are we telling people you're gonna have to go home and meet on Zoom?
So 90% of our boards meet only on Zoom. There are very few that are meeting in person.
Okay.
And the ones that do meet in person, we're never on the same night. ZBA is Mondays, we're Tuesdays, Green Advisory are Thursdays. Capital planning is usually Thursday on the off night of Green Advisory, but everyone else is almost meeting fully remote.
Okay.
Too convenient.
But even as it is, even if they were all meeting in person, they still have to reserve the rooms accordingly to provide an open meeting space. So they'd still have to work around the schedule either here or at Pompo.
And it's not an issue to have plenty of accounts or bandwidth to have lots going on.
Yeah, so we have about 25 Zoom accounts that I pay for annually.
So one of those Zoom accounts would have to be used.
So ideally, because then it's recorded to the town of Stow's cloud account, so if someone, so I put in here, that's why sort of 3 is a little bit weird. Because if they record to the cloud in there, so the department heads, most of the department heads have a paid account. So when they're working with their respective boards, we have 3 sort of generic ones that boards and committees rotate around. Then I can go on in the back end and get the meeting recording. You know, if it got to the point that we needed more paid accounts, we certainly can. But it's been a good number to have at any one time.
I can think of at least one group that may not be using a town account. I'm not positive about that, but
Well, I know.
So this
one that
might-
isn't.
this might,
Mhm.
you know, also there's gonna be some change for people.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that as well.
They can certainly use their own, but then they have to make sure they send us the video. You know, the benefit is
It's a lot
with the
easier.
town, we can go in and get it if they're using their own.
Make it easy if possible. That's,
would.
if that's what it does.
Okay. Are we ready for a motion on this one or?
Sure.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move to approve the recording of meetings policy with the following amendment in section number 2 to be renamed all other boards, committees, and ad hoc committees.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I,
Aye, that's unanimous. Great, let's talk about the remote work policy. The draft remote work policy.
Yes, so I just want to start, so Dolores is here on Zoom. So Dolores had convened a policy committee comprised of Kristen Fox, Tina McAndrew, and Kathy Sfera to go over policies. They've been working on these for quite some time. Obviously, given Dolores's departure, she wanted to wrap these up before she left. As a little background, the policies were sent out to all employees on October 31st, asking for any feedback, questions, or comments. There was some minor comments and a revised policies were sent back out to the department heads on November 7th, because those were the only ones that had questions. And I'm talking all the policies as a whole. And then, so these are the final versions. There were no glaring comments. I will say a lot of it is concerned because we're going from nothing to something.
Right.
And as I've told employees and department heads, we need to start somewhere.
Mhm.
You know, policies can certainly be changed. Let's get these on the books and then start to see if there are issues, if there are, you know, concerns, if there are hiccups as we're trying to implement them. More so with the comp time, that's the one that's generated the most concern. But again, we've been all over the place with how employees are either handling certain tasks, like the inclement weather. people were allowed to use sick time, other people couldn't use sick time. We just want to get started. So I fully expect that over the upcoming months, we may be bringing some of these back with changes as we implement them. But I do want to let you know that every employee did have the ability to weigh in and provide any feedback. So if you have questions, comments, as I said, Dolores is here as well.
Just the remote work policy, was this actually developed because of the pandemic situation where we had more circumstances of folks needing to work remotely or whatever, or?
No, it's as a result, it is as a result of the pandemic, because now people want to have flexible schedules. So a lot of these are for recruitment purposes. When we're trying to recruit employees, you know, if they're somewhere working 3 days a week in office now, they don't want to come here and work 5 days a week. So this is more to set some structure around, you know, benefits that we can provide to employees that, you know, do not cost us anything, but may make their lives a little bit easier. They save money for their commute, while still being able to get the work done.
Right.
So during COVID, everyone just sort of made it work, mostly because the buildings were closed and people could work remotely. Now we want to make that more structured. I'll be honest, I don't expect a ton of people to take advantage of this because this is more of a permanent schedule. We currently, and I do allow employees to have the flexibility of, you know, if someone has childcare issues, they can, and I know they're working because they're actively responding. You know, Valerie works from home maybe once a week because of her meeting schedule. That's not really considered remote work because it's, you know what, I'm going to work from home tomorrow. It's not every Wednesday. It's not every. So this is more of a formality on, you know, not permanent because we can always change it, but a more regular schedule.
Thanks for the clarification on that.
And I do think a lot of businesses are using, like you said, using it as a recruitment tool.
Yeah.
Um,
Sense.
I mean, we have a number of employees that will never qualify, you know.
no, I mean, that's the thing. It's like a
First
very
for the
specific,
public,
right?
You know, their job is to deal with the public,
Right.
so you can't really have the tax collector working from home.
Right.
But you know, there are other positions that can,
Please talk to the monitor.
yeah, that are able to do work
Right.
remotely and,
Right.
you know, so
I did
it's
have
just another option that we would have available.
I did have a few questions and possible edits.
Sure.
Section B, on page 2. I would have liked to have seen just say evaluated on an individual basis, period. All the requirements on what the evaluation is, I would have thought would be more just left up to the department head and the individual and you, not have to be specified here.
Can I say why I think that is necessary? I think, and Dolores, maybe you can speak to this, but I'm assuming that this is a CYA thing. Should an employee come back and say, well, the department had just decided that I couldn't do this, and you need to have a reason for why, like, if they don't meet the criteria, like, it's just,
Which they can still do now. And then it would eventually have to go to, probably to Denise for discussion. But the department heads and the individual employees can figure out whether or not an employee can work remote. And I didn't think we needed all this, or even the work expectations. I mean, for me, work expectations would be do your job.
yeah, but that, I mean, really,
Hector,
I thi-
in this state, I can tell you right now. You take these expectations out and you're really setting us up into a can of worms.
I think you have to be very clear and about what the rules are and whatnot, and I think I think if Denise or Dolores want to speak to that, I think that that's a cover your butt kind of
I guess I'm
thing if
coming
it gets
from,
pushed later on down the road.
from the jobs I'm coming from. These are all understood. You don't have to specify it. This is part of your job. You're evaluated on how well you do your job, not on whether you followed the letter of this law or policy in this case. So that's my perspective.
Yeah,
I'm hearing mine might be the only. That's that perspective.
Well, I,
You're conscientious.
Hold on, she was gonna answer real quick.
I mean, I would just say there is a difference between private and public sector. You know, my sisters work remotely. They're getting their hair done, they're getting their nails done, because the expectation is as long as you get your job done.
Exactly.
Our expectation is you have to be available to the public during working hours.
Right.
So we do need to set the expectation that you're supposed to be just at home doing the same job you would do here.
Mhm.
It's not about going grocery shopping. It's not about getting your hair done. It's not about doing your errands. You are expected to work 8 to 4, Monday through Friday, if that's what you're just working in a different location. So I do think it's important to set that because we're not giving them the ability to just get the job done. It's, you know, if a customer calls or emails at 3:30 on a Thursday, you should be responding to that email at 3:31 on a Thursday, because you should be just sitting at home doing the
Right.
same job. So I do think there is some need to put expectations down. You know, if we find out it's not necessary going forward, we can certainly alter it, but I think to start, we should let folks know what they are expected to do and how they're expected to do it.
Sorry, what were you gonna say, JT?
Denise basically said, you're a very conscientious worker and you get it, you understand, you know, your duties and you follow through with those things.
Well, and I will confess that I've gone grocery shopping during the workday when I work from home, because I live right next to Shaw's. You could do that at lunch and stuff. But, okay, the other thing that I was worried about was the workspace. We're dictating appropriate furniture, equipment, supplies, and lighting. And be safe and free from hazards.
It's to help prevent workers' comp claims.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh,
I mean, they
don't-
really shouldn't be bringing their computer and sitting on a beach and saying they're in a suitable workspace.
But if they get sunburned, it's on them, right? That's not a workman's comp then.
If they
If they're-
trip,
if
if they
they're-
trip on the beach, it's on us.
Or if the computer ends up in the ocean.
Right.
Okay.
And the expectation is that it's the remote one, like they would be using their own computer, but like they have to pay for their own printer. stuff
No,
like that,
I mean,
or, like,
we
that would be-
provide-
We would provide all of.
Yeah, I mean, most of the department I bought Surface tablets
Mhm.
for many when I got here.
Mhm.
You know, we can provide a computer.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, if it gets to the point that we need to provide them printers and modems and
Mhm.
then it's just not worth it. It's not
Right.
fiscally responsible of us to then be buying all this equipment.
Got it.
If people, you know, have a computer and they hook into their home internet and call it a day.
Mhm.
Our phone system now that we've upgraded, they could take their phone, plug it into their data line at home, and it's like they're sitting at their desk.
Okay.
But no, so we don't want to get crazy with buying equipment and
Right.
resources for
Right,
people
right.
to have the flexibility to work at home.
Then it goes into how to request a remote work assignment, and I understand that's for assignment where you're gonna be regularly working from home. What about something came up, childcare, whatever, I have to work from home tomorrow? Where is that covered?
So I don't really consider that remote work. I
Okay.
consider that a situation. Like I said, we have that now. People will say, oh, can I work from home tomorrow? To me, remote work is a steady schedule at home, not
Okay.
the one-off occurrence of daycare or I'm not
So
feeling
we
great,
don't
I'm
need a
gonna work from
policy
home
to
today.
cover that. Okay,
No.
and I guess the other ones would remain as well. No, that would be my only questions then.
And I left the policy right now, and again, we can certainly reevaluate this if need be. That the office needs to be open. So obviously, if it's a one-person office, it's not feasible for remote work.
Mhm.
If there are 2 people, then we ask that their schedules be staggered if they both want to take advantage of it. So the office should be open, barring vacations or some unforeseen situation. But this is not that both people in the office are approved to work from home the same days a week. So the public can still come in and meet with someone face to face.
That's all I had.
Okay, anybody else?
I'm sorry.
Ready for a motion?
All right, we'll give you a motion. There's no amendments to this, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the remote work policy as presented at this meeting.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, that's unanimous. Let's see, I went,
Great policy.
yeah, CORI. Let's review the draft criminal offender record information policy.
Yeah, good luck remembering that.
Acronyms can be useful as long as everybody understands what they represent.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yep.
I had asked Denise ahead of time, because I was curious if I saw that volunteers were supposed to be getting quarried, and I was like, I'm a volunteer, we've not gotten quarried. And the understanding is that, or I have been quarried many times for volunteering in the school and all the other things, but I think my question was, as elected officials who are also volunteers, are we then expected to go through this process as well? And the answer was, it is, if we were volunteers that work with vulnerable populations, then the expectation would be that we would be having to fill out a query, but as.
Or if you're getting a liquor license.
Yes, well, I mean, yes.
Or class 2. But yeah, so like if you wanted to volunteer at the library, you would have to be quarried, even though
Right,
you're a select
even
board
though,
member,
yeah.
but it's for your volunteering.
Yep.
Where, children and
Mhm.
seniors, if you wanted to volunteer at the Council on Aging, you have to be quarried.
Yep.
Is that happen, I read this, but it happens in the sort of application process before a recommendation to the board anyway, right? Yeah.
I kind of had a question along the same lines, like how often do you need to get quarried?
Is it yearly?
So Dolores, do you want, if Dolores can take that, and
Every
this-
3 years. Although the summer kids, when anyone who leaves and comes back, we redo the CORI.
Okay.
Makes sense.
and this is something that we are required to have, we
Hmm.
just have not had, so.
Great.
And it does not go with the federal records.
No, this really goes with the state CORI law. This is most of the model policy, but it also includes the practices that we've actually been doing.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, ready for a motion?
I sure am.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to approve the criminal offender record information CORI policy as presented at this meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Let's talk about the first comp time policy for exempt employees.
And I need to make an amendment to that.
Okay.
The first page, policy description, the second paragraph. The last sentence should be removed. That's exempt Stow employees will not be paid out accrued comp time.
Oh,
That is conflicting from the second half of the policy.
I guess I
So-
can remove my comment there.
So we would pay out up to 1 week if they have accrued comp time on the books.
Okay.
And again, so there has been some concern with this. When I came here, I was told, the town did not have comp time, it was flex time. If you earned it in a week, you had to take it off in a week. Then I start seeing people putting comp time and weeks on using a weeks of comp time on their timesheets. How people accrue it have been different, what's considered comp time has been treated differently. So, there are some exceptions to this, and there is some flexibility in here that allows me to extend additional time. For instance, our highway superintendent, during the winter may be here 3 nights in a row plowing and may not have the ability to take time off within a certain period of time. So there are allowances for additional time to be granted. It still would not change the buyout upon separation, but it would allow flexibility. My feeling, an employee came to me today about the concern of that because they accrue comp time 10 to 12 hours additional a week. And my feeling on that is then something's wrong with the position.
Yeah.
Solving it is not raising your salary, solving is not paying you for this, solving it is figuring out what you're doing that you shouldn't be, offloading some work, getting you additional resources. So that's what we're working through now. Again, it's not a perfect policy because everyone has been different, but we need a starting point and we need to standardize this
Yep.
once and for all.
Yep.
As it says right in here, which is true, we are under no obligation to offer comp time for exempt employees.
Mhm.
They get paid a salary, they're supposed to do their job regardless of what it takes.
Mhm.
And the fact that people have been accruing differently and have just assumed they get comp time, and we need to stop all that. So this, again, we will have some bumps in the road trying to implement this. Just because this is the one that affects department heads the most. I think it's doable. As I said, I put it out. I only had a couple of questions on it, but I would expect that we may be tweaking this over the next few months.
Should I be recusing
Just
myself?
wondering.
As you started talking, I'm like, I think I need to recuse myself here.
I would say
You
yes.
may have
should.
to for a
I don't know that-
lot of them.
Yeah, this is really the only one with the financial component, I would say.
The nepotism.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he could certainly recuse himself from that.
Okay, bye.
Stay within earshot. I love this policy. And I like the fact that, especially that you have to use it. You can't keep building it up so that you have half a year off by the time you're getting ready to retire. But my only question was, is it possible, instead of requiring that they take it within 3 months, just you take it by the end of July of the next fiscal year, or you lose it?
So yes and no. I mean, the 3 months is, as it is, we struggle with people banking their vacation time and taking it all off in the summer. I think if we do that, we're gonna be in the same situation. People are gonna wait till May and June and then start using all their comp time. And then they're gonna use all their vacation time and we're gonna have no one here, you know, the last quarter of the fiscal year. Even though I tell people all the time, you know, you have 12 months, spread out your time, take it, but that's generally, people wanna take the good weather off. So that would be my only concern. You know, we certainly can add some flexibility there, but if we give everyone the full year, they're all gonna wait to take it in the nice months, the warmer
It
weather.
hasn't happened in a while, but I'm thinking like December through February, especially for highway workers and plow drivers, like you mentioned. They could be working straight through and they've missed their 3-month window to
Right.
take the comp time.
What if we do, could we change it to 6?
I think there is discretion in here. I have to double check.
I thought that's what I.
Yeah, I think there's still some discretion if people need, Dolores, do you recall?
I'm looking, but we did put in a clause because we were, you know, where we have a lot of departments with only 2 people. If one has a vacancy for 6 or 8 months, they're not going to be able to take comp time and they're going to work more time. So I think we did include, I'm just looking for it, for unusual circumstances with the town administrator's approval.
So not for the, so we can add that in for the 3 months. So we have that in for the number of hours and then at the end of the fiscal year, they can carry it over. So I can certainly add in, something around the 3 months.
I prefer if we did it so that it was like by your permission or something, so it was an exception rather than expanding it
Right.
and coming.
Right.
So it's after
Yeah,
making
these
the
other
request, comma,
Or, you know, at the discretion or.
at the discretion, or at the discretion of the
With permission of
of the town administrator.
Yeah, that would work.
The discretion. After making the request or at the discretion of the town administrator, that's what you'd like me to add?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm satisfied, happy.
Yep, you ready for a motion?
Sure.
All right. Madam Chair, I move to approve the compensatory policy for exempt employees with the amendments
As
as
discussed.
discussed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous.
Will you make notes that JT abstained or?
He didn't abstain, he
Not
recused
abstained, that
himself.
he recused himself.
So it's a unanimous vote because he's not voting at all.
So now we're doing,
JT,
non-exempt here.
You're gonna ping pong in and out. That's what happens.
so the non-exempt is obviously those employees that are hourly, that are not under a salaried schedule. So this is a little bit different because they are, paid hour for hour. So you'll see that because our normal work schedule is 37.5 hours, hours worked from 37.5 to 40 is 1 hour for 1 hour. And then anything over 40 is at the time and a half, rate.
Under mass. Yeah, well, don't we actually have to pay them though, rather than comp time, or is that an option?
It can be at the employee's option, not our option. That's the Fair Labor Standards Law.
So a lot of the contracts will specify that, the union contracts will specify if it's, employee can choose if they want overtime or comp time. And so this is for sort of the employees that don't have a contract, which we don't have a ton of hourly employees. But this would cover them and really treat it the same as the union employees.
Okay.
So same question here about the 3 months. Would that apply with non-exempt employees? I know it says be cashed out. I'm assuming that means that they would just get the equivalent and
The time.
Hey.
Yes.
don't need to worry about if they don't take it within 3 months.
No, and again, it's rare for hourly employees to be putting in
Right.
a lot of extra time. I mean, they're usually an hour here or there. And then just the way it is, they take it off that week or, so we don't have a lot of non-exempt employees accruing comp time currently. But it could happen.
Good with this one?
Yep. You ready for motion?
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to approve the compensatory policy for non-exempt employees as presented at this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Inclement weather. Looking forward to that any minute now.
So as I said, this was another one that was very different. People just didn't show up and said, well, it was a snow day. People would say, I'm using my sick time because it's snowing and I don't want to drive in the snow. And then I came here and I'm like, you can't use sick time. Like that's not okay. If we're open, we're open. And obviously when it's really bad weather, I close the buildings and don't want employees to travel.
Right.
But this would be crystal clear. We had times that people said, well, I was on vacation and you closed the building, I should get another day off. Doesn't work that way. We want everything spelled out. Dolores made a nice little chart at the end that spells out exactly what happens. So.
Yeah, I love that chart.
That's
Yes,
perfect. Yeah,
Yes.
great.
So it's nice to, again, have something.
Yep.
I think there'll still be some growing pains with it just because it's a change from how it currently is, but there should be no question how we are dealing with inclement weather.
Trying to be fair and consistent.
Yes.
So far, doing a great
We
job.
appreciate it. Okay, any other,
Two questions.
Yep.
I'm guessing based on previous discussions, this is a workman's comp issue, but weatherize automobiles accordingly? Is that something for us to tell them to do? It's
Where?
under policy description, the second bullet, anticipating weather conditions and weatherize automobiles
prepare for winter
accordingly.
weather by.
I read that as like, you can't say I can't get to work because I don't have
Snow tires.
Right.
tires.
I don't have a snow brush, so
I
can't
don't, or I don't have a brush, right, I don't have a brush, I don't have like
Right.
heat in my car or whatever, like those are.
Need to put that in a policy? That
Well,
just-
no, but that's, but they can't say,
They can't say.
I'm on a snow day because I can't clean off my car. They could say, I need to take a personal day today. But that can't be an excuse for them to not come to
Right.
work.
I guess, I
It's,
just don't see,
you
I
know,
didn't
policies-
realize having to put that
policies
in a
are to
policy.
spell out
Policies.
that are muddy and squishy
Yes.
and
Okay.
get them straight and narrow.
The only other question I had is, so if the town offices are closed, do we need, since we do have a remote work ability, should we say anything about employees that can log in remotely and do some of the job?
Because sometimes the kids have to go to school.
Well, no, but so I've struggled with that because to me, then that's not fair and equitable.
Right,
If we're saying to people, well, you have a computer, you need to work from home today, and then the people that aren't able to work from home, you just get a free day. I'll be honest, when we have a snow day, people are at home working because that's what they're doing.
Right.
So it's hard to put that in a policy when almost half the staff can and half the staff cannot.
okay.
I tried that this past year, like, it's gonna be snowy, plan accordingly, do work from home. People are like, well, I don't have a computer, I don't have this, I can't take my work home, we can't take stuff out of the office. And then it was like, well, then you just get a free day and everyone, so it's just not fair and equitable.
So some people are doing it because they want to stay on top of their work.
Right, I mean, people will just, if it's a snow day, they're just gonna work from home anyways, maybe not all day, but they'll catch up on email and, they might catch up on a project because it's quiet.
They're not gonna feel terrible that the television is on in the background. Well, they're doing.
Right, or they're gonna go out and shuffle and then come
Right.
back and,
Good music.
right, it's just not as much a requirement because again,
Yeah. not
you don't
fair.
have the ability for everybody to work from home.
You can spend the day writing policies.
Voice of experience?
As I said, I hope you have some good music on. Or some.
Great.
I'm good with this.
You ready for motion?
Yes, I am.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to approve the inclement weather policy as presented at this meeting.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, thank you. Check, next, religious accommodation policy.
Thanks for getting this one on the books.
Another policy we should have had.
yeah.
Hey, we're getting there, baby
Yep,
steps.
I know, baby steps. This is why we're doing like 17 policies tonight.
The only question I had was, so the policy scope in the last sentence says impose an undue hardship on the town of Stow. Should anything be mentioned about also endangering anyone's safety or violating the law? I remember a long time ago, there was a case where somebody tried to get a religious exemption to be allowed to smoke pot at work because it was their religion. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, yeah, good luck with that. You must be high.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet. We'll be in it a little bit. But basically, I love that we're supporting religions, but there are some people whose religion can be dangerous.
Dolores is making this.
The only thing looking at, we really technically should be a drug and alcohol-free workplace because we accept federal funding. So that hopefully more of what I've seen, honestly, is I'm a witch and I worship on Halloween, so I need the day off so I can be in Salem. When you push on that, they usually say, all right, fine, I'm coming to work. Sometimes you may need to allow someone to come in later so that they can go to a service. But for the most part, it's accommodation and prayer. I do worry. I had someone who was Orthodox Jewish once who couldn't be out after dark. So it was very difficult to make sure in the winter that she got home safely in time because she also wouldn't drive a vehicle. No electricity, no vehicle. So that was tough. That was one that was safety, and we had to make sure she left on time. Other than that, I haven't run into any safety issues.
Well, the reason I also said violate the law was because I remember what happened, I believe, in Oklahoma or Alabama, where a town clerk, an elected official, though the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage, refused to issue gay marriage licenses based on their religion.
But I don't know that that's a reasonable accommodation.
Okay,
I think that would be, I don't think that's a reasonable accommodation of.
I don't either, but
Well, that would be a hardship to the town or.
Yes, because
Right.
the
They're not gonna
function of their
perform their
job,
duties.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly add to that first scope, we could add something about safety or legality.
And not to get too dark, but if some neo-Nazi starts making their Nazism their religion, I want it to be clear that, no, you can't be a racist anti-Semite at work.
Well, it does, what, isn't there something in here? It's like any.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the anti-retaliation.
I mean, you know,
So,
I would say that's not a religion.
I agree.
And if they, you know, that sort of religion section, they have to be new, uncommon, not part of a church sect, or only held by a small number of people. I mean, they can't just say, we just formed this church and now we're gonna observe.
Well, it says as well as
They're
religious
saying Friday
beliefs that
off.
are new, uncommon, and not part of a church sect.
Yes, sorry.
sorry.
Yes. And then we'd have to get into sincerely held belief and see how far down that road they would go.
Yep.
So we should try it the way it is right now and see if we need to worry about it later.
I think,
Well, I think the policy scope. You made a good point, and I think after you can say impose an undue hardship, comma, danger.
Or liability.
welfare,
Or
town
law.
employees or residents of the town of Stow, something along that line, and that would cover that aspect of things. And that actually would probably help even with our wonderful, Nazi friend you're mentioning.
What was it? Danger or?
Liability?
No, danger or
Welfare.
welfare.
Or
Does not impose an undue hardship, danger, or welfare?
doesn't make sense, or it doesn't liability.
Well, so you've got the town of Stow, and you're sort of also talking about individuals, right? So do you want to separate that into a separate clause of the sentence?
Well, no, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
Hardship or danger to other employees or the residents of the town of Stow, I think would just cover it. Would you agree, Dolores?
I think that will work. Part of the goal for the policy was so that people with sincerely held beliefs weren't being denied the opportunity to either pray at work or take time off to attend a religious service, but that would be okay. Undue hardship on the town or danger or liability.
Yeah, so right now it says does not impose an undue hardship, danger, or liability for employees or residents in the town of Stow.
I think that's fine. We're not losing sight of the original, make sure we accommodate employees' religious requests.
No, we're not.
No, we're not.
Yep.
And I do also think that obviously helps us, again, with recruitment, for people to see that we are a welcoming community.
Right, I have to say, I agree with this point being put in because I'm seeing on the news more and more with the whole Gaza thing. You have two
Right,
very committed
right.
sides to this. And it's really beginning to infiltrate into the safety of even college campuses, so.
Further comments, discussion, or amendments to this policy?
So,
You ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
All right, Madam Chair, I move to approve the religious accommodation policy with the amendments as discussed at this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
All right.
JT,
Madam Chair, before discussion begins on the next policy of nepotism, I need to recuse myself.
so,
I am not a grammarian, but I thought it weird that in the numbered list, the first two sentences seem to be part of a list, and then the next five seem to be independent sentences.
okay. Town is will hire relatives of person currently employed only if candidates for employment will not be working directly.
Only if no supervisor shall have hiring authority over a relative or shall make recommendations. That doesn't seem to flow heard. Only if no supervisor may participate in any way in the decision. It doesn't flow as a,
I disagree.
Yeah,
I,
like I said, I'm also not a grammarian, so
no, I mean, it's
Could
this
be
is
wrong.
part of a,
Well, I think if anything, it shouldn't be only if, colon, maybe it's only if the following conditions apply.
yeah,
And then you have sort of the individual sentences.
yeah,
all right, I mean, basically the colon is short for what you said, but it's
Right.
fine.
Right.
You
Okay.
okay with that, Dolores?
I'm fine with that. I did copy much of this from 268A, so I could have cut and pasted a little too.
so the whole
So-
state probably. So why should we do the state? We can stay the way.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
And
That's fine.
do we need to say anything about people who are appointed?
Let's see. Time to call.
Well, I think,
So people who are appointed are actually employees, so they're either
The-
full-time or part-time.
Right,
right,
okay,
I mean,
so we don't
they're
need to
employees of the
specify.
town.
I mean, it says employment or membership. I mean, it doesn't matter. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter if you're appointed, or elected. You still fall under 268A in the requirements.
Okay,
And then, you'll notice that last sentence, that last
Yes.
paragraph,
yep, I appreciate that.
Where are we?
the very last
Oh,
paragraph
yeah.
under procedure.
yes, I highlighted that. I like that one.
This is a policy moving forward, and then that paragraph is for grandfathering purposes.
Well, everyone would still have to comply with this policy. So if we have situations currently, then they would have to
Cause they have to
file
resubmit
with the
paperwork
appointing
every
authority.
so often
Yep.
anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
so
have-
that's
we have
covered.
Disclosures.
Yep.
Already.
Yep.
And that's covered in the previous paragraph that
Yep.
they are required to complete, or they may need to complete a disclosure form.
Yep.
Depending on what their excuse me, a situation is.
Okay.
And then it says approval by the town administrator select board, depending on who the appointing authority is.
Okay.
And then if they're elected, it would be, there's no approval, it just goes on file with the town clerk.
Yeah, I think, well done.
Yeah, this is
Mhm.
great.
Ready for a motion?
I am ready to give you a motion. Madam Chair, I move to approve the nepotism policy as presented at this meeting.
With the following amendment,
With the
with the
amendments discussed at this meeting.
which was just that minor grammatical change.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
night,
Aye.
It's unanimous.
JT,
Thank you, Dolores.
thank you, Dolores.
Okay.
Thank you, Dolores.
Thank you.
Thanks for
A lot of hard work.
writing
Yeah.
and coming to the meeting and all of it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So the nepotism policy, I mean, I now need to resign the position.
Sorry, yes, no.
Okay, great.
No such luck, not so fast.
Alright.
It was exactly 1 hour,
Wow.
7:38 to 8:38 for all the policies, exactly 1 hour.
Fantastic.
Good job.
Okay.
I would like to table the next item. Does anybody have a correspondence or further updates or comments for the meeting?
On correspondence, I was really glad that MSBA did put in the 32B.
So just clear, it's not MSBA, it's Select Board Association. MSBA is the Mass School Building Authority. You're referring to the Mass Select Board Association. Okay.
Okay.
You confused me in the beginning when you said MSBA, and that's okay.
I meant it as Mass Select Board, sorry.
That's okay.
On the 32B, which is that whole issue that we discussed.
Yep.
About folks still getting pensions that went through court and.
Yeah.
I did have a question about the Stantec thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a feasibility study about possibly putting in a public water supply off Red Acre Road, right?
So no, so yes and no.
We're in
So
that
this
area.
this is phase one of the overall study to see if there's water for Lower Village.
Okay.
There were two parcels looked at, one of which was off of Heritage Lane behind
Right.
the
Off of White Pond Road.
off of White
Yeah.
Pond,
Yeah.
and then the other one was Red Acre because those are town-owned properties. So this initial report is their test well report based on the testing they did in those two locations.
I have a question.
So there's still,
Go ahead.
so there's still more study to be done, including to understand what the aquifers are underneath Lower Village and.
So not necessarily what the aquifers are, it's well capacity, it's where we could place a well, it's the amount of water that could come from a well. What the capacity needed would be, and if there's enough volume for that. And then what the cost would be, how to implement a public water supply. Those types of things.
Implement, meaning get it from the wellhead to the usage location.
Yeah, and they are supposed to, so we had a meeting with them last week and they were supposed to be done December 1st and they will not. They don't think they'll be done until February, but we have asked them for, cost comparisons across the board. Not that I support this at all, but what would it cost for the town to run the public water supply versus what would it cost for a water district to be formed? They are supposed to give us sort of all of that analysis so that at the end of this, we can see, what the town wants to do. Obviously, if it's something the town were to take over, we'd have to create a water department. Taxes go up, the fee, I mean, there's, so they're gonna give us those prices. Additionally, just further testing, there was a lot of information to read in this test well report. But their initial testing at the Heritage Lane site, they were not productive. And
Right.
it was, well, for $100,000 more, we can drill a deeper well and go through the, we're not at that point. It's, let's
Okay.
get all the information and then
Well, that's
figure
why I
out.
was asking about the aquifers as well.
Mhm.
Is part of the study even going to look at the possibility, and I don't know if it can, the water system that's at Stow Plaza?
That's private.
That's private.
It's private.
It's private.
Is there an option to buy it and manage it?
Why would we want to do that?
Why would they?
And why would they
sell-
want to sell it?
So
Why
our
do we wanna
study.
sell it? It's not easy to answer, but
So our study is not taking that into consideration. If the businesses got together and came to us and said, we want to partner with Linear and help us do that, we would certainly facilitate a conversation.
okay.
Those conversations have not happened and there has been no appetite thus far for either side to say, hey, let's work together. As you know, I participate in the MWRA expansion study.
Right.
We're still talking 10
Decades.
years down the road, if that, hundreds of billions of dollars. But if there were to be an opportunity to bring water to Maynard, then it's an easy connection from the Maynard line to Lower Village. I met with a bunch of Boxborough folks last week. They have a water study committee. So I met with 3 of their members last week and just talked about, they're in the exact same situation as us. They're entirely private wells. They have a couple of apartment complexes on their western border that borders Littleton that are struggling to find water. And they're actually partnering with Littleton at the Amazon warehouse site because that well has overcapacity. So they're gonna extend it into Littleton. And we sort of talked about what's possible between the two towns. If there is any, they're in the MWRA study, but not officially. They're sort of following it along, but they're not listed as, they're like an asterisk in the study. Because again, there's so many components. So, but we've talked about, what's possible. they're conducting a townwide water study. I don't know exactly what it entails, but they told me they'll share the results when they get them. You know, if there's some opportunity to do something with them down the line. They seem to be focused on, let's just run water mains throughout the whole town. And I said,
Foxborough?
in concept, that's what they're saying, because they feel like that's just the direction that the state's gonna require. And I said, but again, if you're talking 80 street miles, you know, at $2 million a mile of pipe, I mean, 160 million, those are all betterments. You have to put that on the taxpayer, or you have to find a way to get
Just fund it.
$160 million. For their Littleton connection, they actually got a state grant, so all of that is gonna be funded, and then the main work, and then they're gonna apply a betterment to the houses, even the ones that it goes by, even if they don't wanna connect, they said they will be assessed a betterment for this water. So, you know, obviously, Lower Village is nowhere near the Boxborough line. But those are sort of the ongoing discussions with water, and what do we do?
So I have a question about the places that were tested. Because I thought we had a parcel back on Deerfield Lane that we did go back to the state legislature and amend our, whatever it is, the chapter 97 classification, the conservation restriction on that property. Is that too far from where we need the water to have looked at it, or did it?
Is that the one they couldn't find?
So I don't know, obviously, we worked, so Valerie, Kathy are the ones who sort of came up with the locations based on the Article 97 protection, any conservation restrictions. I don't know. I don't know if that was initially looked at and then didn't make it into sort of the final study. I can tell you that the Red Acre Road parcel, it's specifically identified in Article 97 that it could be a future water supply. And where they started to do the testing was outside of that border, and we had to actually say to them, no, I don't care if you find water here, it's not allowed. You need to find water over here. So
There's more light to look for my watch under the street lights.
So when we went on the walk to christen the boardwalk, there was, you know, 2 locations of test wells where they initially put one in and we're like, no, it's down the road here. So I don't know about that parcel. I can ask Kathy about that specifically. But I do know
it's probably a little late.
Well, but it's still something, you know, if at the end of this, if
Yeah.
the results are no water and a ridiculous amount of money to run it from Red Acre Road up, you know, maybe we look at an
Maybe
alternative.
almost as far from Deerfield Lane, without a map in front of me. Right, just curious. Thank you.
So I will have, so they are working, this was task 1, they have 2 more tasks. And the final task is a public presentation of information. So as we get other reports, I'll be sure to share them, and then ultimately we would have them here for a public presentation of their findings.
Got it. So eventually this will be an agenda item, not for a while.
Cool.
Are you ready for a final motion?
And just double checking that all of that is water.
It's a lot of water.
It's a lot of water.
Yep. All
Yeah,
water.
it's all water under the bridge now.
And there are a lot of technical attachments that I know Ingeborg would love to read, but they're all available if anyone wants
So
them.
if you can. Great, I'm ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
Thank you.
Thank you.